A few years ago, a 34-year-old mother came to the office, three kiddos, sat down, had this big old grin on her face, and she said, "Guess what? I stopped breathing through my mouth." And it literally changed my life. Since last visit, since I'd given her this advice, suggested this, and said, let's take your mouth at night, see how that does for you, because you are mouth breathing and you have headaches and fatigue and anxiety and all this kind of stuff. Let's give it a go. And she said, "You know what? I can handle my kids now during the day. I don't feel that need to take a nap, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, get that second cup of coffee. That's gone." And I feel like I have more life margin just across the board. Everything in life, my husband, we just get along better because everything doesn't seem quite as big as it seemed before. Is that just awesome? And she said that was the best advice I'd ever given her. Amongst all the things over years of seeing her, that was the very best thing. So the key is just getting better, right? That is the key. We all want to get better. We all want to improve. We want to maximize our capacity to do life. If you're a mouth breather, no worries. You're not a bad person. You're just breathing through your mouth. But you are experiencing life in a state of heightened distress. You're not getting to experience your best self, getting to experience your body at its highest capacity if you're mouth breathing. And given that life is going faster and faster, seemingly, the opportunity for overload is ever growing. Choices galore, right? If there's a simple, low cost, effective thing any of us could do at any point in our life to reduce the level of sympathetic activation, that fight or fight response to our body, I think it's safe to say we want to do it. So there was a 2011 study, and this was done in animals, that where they basically experimentally induced nasal obstruction. They wouldn't let them breathe through their nose. They had to just breathe through their mouth. And they showed in these animals a 1,000% increase in their stress hormone response. That's crazy, right? 1,000% increase. I mean, even a 10% increase, 100% increase, 500%, but 1,000%. And that was only over a 24-hour period of mouth breathing. Now consider, say if you're sitting at your desk, at your computer, you're on your phone, watching TV, sitting in your car, laying in bed at night, sleeping through the night, and you're mouth breathing all that time. Day after day, week after week, month after month. It literally is no wonder you do not feel exceptional, right? You do not feel like you're living your best life. You feel like maybe you're dragging yourself, that you don't have the margin for error that you would like, and that you're easily set off, or you lose your cool, get angry, lose your temper, because the body is in a state of ticked offness. Your body is thinking it's going to have to run from a bear, it's going to have to get out of a burning house at any moment when we're in a state of mouth breathing. And if that's happening month after month, year after year, at some point the body's going to start breaking down, and we're just not going to be enjoying the capacity we could be enjoying simply by training ourselves to nasal breathe versus mouth breathe. And there's also the impact that is observed on literally the beauty of our being, that our facial structure, our mouth, our dentin, our teeth, if we're mouth breathing versus nasal breathing. So beauty tip number 1 is to become a proficient nasal breather. And if you want your teeth to last, and you don't want to find yourself at the dentist all the time with all kind of surgeries and gingivitis and all that kind of stuff, you got to keep those lips closed. We got to get air going into the nasal passage and not into the mouth, because mouth breathing causes the pH of the mouth to go lower, become more acidic. And when the oral cavity becomes more acidic, the mouth is all dry, you're going to get more cavities, you're going to get more gingivitis, you're going to get more mouth sores, you get just more issues galore in your mouth. And saliva, is meant to actually neutralize acid in the mouth, and it's meant to flush away bacteria, especially rogue bacteria. And if you're mouth breathing, you're not going to have much saliva present because your mouth's going to be so dry. So that means more tooth erosion, that means more gum inflammation, that means more trips to the dentist. Not to mention, you're more likely to have braces and need spacers and headgear and all that kind of stuff, which none of us want, right? So, mouth breathing also causes a turbulence of breath that goes directly into the throat, which can irritate our tonsils. And that promotes a state of an allergenic response, a chronic immune response, because our tonsils are an immune organ sitting right there in the back of our throat. As opposed to, say, if it went through our nasal passage, it was humidified, all those dust particulates and all that were cleared, and nitric oxide was added to the air to act as a antiviral, antimicrobial, going into the lungs. That's an entirely different ballgame, right? And of course, if the tonsils start getting enlarged because we keep on mouth breathing, there's that irritation, and that causes even more issues in the respiratory tract, because everything's just going to be swollen up. There's less space for air to go through. You're more likely to become allergic to things, and you're more likely to have more breathing problems. You're more likely to snore. You're more likely to feel like even more so, like you're encumbered trying to breathe both your mouth and through your nose. Next thing you know, tonsillectomy, and now you undergone a surgery. You no longer have an immune organ sitting in the back of your throat. Nobody wants that, right? So we got to promote the nasal breathing, and it does not stop there. I mean, if it's affecting these areas, it's going to affect other areas, right? Particularly our brains. So mouth breathing can increase cognitive issues because of lowered oxygen saturation from the act of mouth breathing versus nasal breathing. And the brain needs lots of oxygen for all its activities. And EEG testing has demonstrated that mouth breathing and nasal breathing cause different brain activity and brain activity patterns. And unfortunately, for the mouth breather, these differences are related to the cognitive regions of the brain and lead to distress and memory issues. Other studies have shown a significant decrease in memory and learning ability in mouth breathers compared to nasal breathers, and along with changes in the central nervous system. So it's not that a mouth breather can't function, but a mouth breather is not functioning at their highest capacity. So if you're breathing through your mouth, you could function at a higher level across the board. A June 2021 study showed that in mouth breathers, functional connectivity to the brain decreased significantly during working memory tasks. And this is compared to nasal breathers. So what is working memory, you ask? Well, working memory is basically when you want to remember that phone number, you want to remember how to drive your car, you want to be able to remember what you just read in that book you were looking at. Any task of daily living, that is your working memory. What's available right now, that short-term go right here. The ability to pay attention in a conversation and to follow instructions that your mom or dad gave you, or follow instructions. I just read that. This is what I got to go do. If you can remember it, then your working memory is working. So this could be why that most kids with ADD or ADHD, you end up finding out they are mouth breathers, and perhaps if you can give them nasal breathing, that working memory would be more efficient for them. I would also like to mention that diaphragmatic breathing is shown to improve a couple things: sustained attention, emotional control, and that thing called cortisol levels. So cortisol is much more balanced when we're diaphragmatic breathing. We're practicing that type of breathing. You probably guess what this means. Diaphragmatic breathing, it works most optimally when we're using the tension through our nasal passage, pulling air through our nose, through our sinus cavity, as compared to just opening up our mouth and air just coming in. So if we're gonna utilize diaphragmatic breathing and the benefits there, we're going to want to nasal breathe. Otherwise, there's not that resistance, and we need that resistance through the nasal passage to optimize our diaphragmatic breathing. And the thing is, we don't want elevated cortisol levels. We want optimally metabolized cortisol, because elevated cortisol, what's it do? It leads to disease, leads to dysfunction, leads to excess body composition, leads to fat in our tummy, hormone disharmony, changes in our gut flora. We don't want to participate in any of that. I know I don't want to. So what are you gonna do? When it comes to breathing, think my mouth's gonna be closed, my tongue is gonna be resting against my upper palate, kind of just snuggled right there behind your teeth, that top row of teeth. And I'm going to be taking in air through my nasal passage, in and out quietly. Hopefully, there's not a bunch of roaring when it's going through the nasal passage. And you feel like, man, it's kind of impinged, it's tough. The more you practice, the more proficient the body will become at doing that. And of course, if you're a mouth breather while sleeping, it might take some time. But look into taping your mouth closed. Put a little piece of tape vertically. Start out with a super, super thin piece. Get used to it and get a bigger piece. And you want those 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. Each night you're laying in bed, you want those hours to be loaded with opportunity for your body and not that fight or flight sympathetic, I'm going to run from bear, I'm going to get out of a burning building kind of sensation. All right, I'm Dr. Matt. Please like, subscribe, send it to your buddies, send it to your mouth breathers, send it to your wife, your husband, and check your kiddos out when they're sleeping at night. Make sure those mouths are closed. If they are open, help them close them. If they're watching a show or something, make sure they're not just sitting there, gawk with their mouth wide open. Say, hey, kiddos. Hey, Timmy. Hey, Louie. Close your mouth, man. No big deal, but it could have massive benefit for them long term. All right, talk to you guys later.